Hi, I'm PC Peri with Flying Focus Video Collective. Tonight we're celebrating our 6th Busiversary, the 6th anniversary of cablecast of our first episode of the Flying Focus Video Bus. This half-hour showcase of works by Flying Focus and its associated producers has had more than 300 installments, including about 250 original segments, plus reruns and some showcasing of other people's work. Flying Focus was founded in 1991 as a result of the so-called Gulf War, or massacre in the Middle East, when several people got together to provide TV coverage of news we're not being told by mainstream media. Our motto at Flying Focus is using video as a tool for social change and voicing the voiceless. As you will see, there have been quite a number of people covering quite a number of topics that you may not have been seeing before. Tonight, you're going to hear some people who worked on the video bus from November 1996 through November 1997. This will first go on cable November 17, 1997, exactly 6 years since the first episode of the first video bus. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Barb Greene, and I produced 4 shows this past year about animal rights. I did that because at Flying Focus we talk about giving voice to the voiceless, and animals are one of those groups that truly have no voice. If they're mistreated, they can't go to court, they can't demonstrate, they can't lobby their legislature, they can't produce shows like this one. So we have to try and put ourselves in their place and do all of that for them. It's our responsibility, not theirs. So let's see a few clips from these shows.
One by the name of Jane McPherson has received well over $500,000 in the last 2 years to be performing balance studies on cats. What she does is go in and with the drill removes the inner ear sensory cells which completely deafen the cats. From there she performs a series of balance studies on the cats, ranging from treadmill activity, jumping up and down. She's used stereotaxic devices before. So, for that reason, being that cats biologically are not humans, it's ridiculous. Also, she stated herself in documents that I've obtained in her journal writing that her findings have been proven in many previous experiments. There's nothing new going on here, except her continuous growth of her pocketbook, I guess.
Is a form of conjugated estrogen that is derived from the urine of pregnant mares. It is currently the most widely prescribed pharmaceutical drug in the United States. It is prescribed to women, postmenopausal women, to prevent the side effects such as bone resorption associated with low estrogen blood levels. The problem with it is that extracting the urine from the pregnant mares involves a great amount of suffering on the part of the horses.
There's many alternatives to Premarin. There's many other drugs that women can take. My aunt right there used to be on Premarin, and when she found out what the hell was made, she quit. And now she's taking another drug that's just as good, isn't it?
All right.
That's my Aunt Barbara right there. She doesn't take Premarin anymore. She takes another drug that's just as good. This suffering, this pain that's happening is not necessary.
Don't wanna cause no pain. I'm only gonna cause what I have to cause until this land is free of shame. Until this land is free of shame. So I'm gonna do what I have to do. Say what I have to say.
And after about a year, somebody had asked me if I'd go in and help them photograph in the laboratory. And after about 3 or 4 labs I was in, I saw some things that went on in there. Again, and it turned out to be the VA that eventually just turned me altogether. Because at that point, I had a dog die in my arms. It was an Alaskan Malamute. We were photographing her, and you remember, I've never been playing with dogs. I've never really been around them. When we were kids, we were so poor. My mother couldn't even feed us, literally. Never mind a dog or a cat. But yet, if I brought one in, she'd find something to give them, you know, a little something, and then we'd have to put them back out on the street. And here's this dog, this Malamute, rubbing his face against mine through the bars and looking at me, you know. And she had a crusted catheter tube sticking out of the side. She would do an ulceration test at the VA, military. Found out 29 years before this, they were still doing the exact same test. This is 17 years ago, they're still doing the same test. So it's that research, as Bob Barker called it, research welfare. They just keep getting that welfare grant every year. All the stitching was infected. As I'm holding her up, the stitching opened up. And in my hand, I laid her down. Within a couple of minutes, seemed like hours, she died. I made a promise to that dog in my head, and I made a commitment to myself. I would spend the rest of my life fighting this. That's when I came to the conclusion, 2 things. 1, this is not science, this is madness. And 2, I've got to separate my emotions from my intellect. When I go into a laboratory, a dog is nothing different than this or anything else. It's an object. I go in with a focus, because if I get sidetracked on my emotions, I'm not going to be able to concentrate on what I'm doing. When I go home at night, then I gotta pay the price. Then I gotta think about it.
This is Washo Sanilula's person, Hug. She is attempting to get a grooming session started on the cargo net, but she can be at times the groomer from hell, and he is trying to avoid her. He's trying to move away. This is her adopted son, who's acquired all of his signs from Washo and from the others. And this is a lovely play. This is Washo and Tatu playing outside. Mojo asks for clothing and puts them on. In our facility, the chimpanzees wear the lab coats, not the researchers do not wear lab coats.
I had visions of clipboards and white lab coats and so on, and I was going to be this scientist and so on. Changing diapers, playing in sandboxes, playing with the chimpanzee with a so-so sense of humor from my point of view. Giving her a piggyback ride, she says, you go, and then I feel this warm sensation running down my back, and hear a chimp on my shoulder saying, which is funny, 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 funny. Sort of a gutter humor, I think, at least Washo's is. I had no idea, but it was wonderful. I mean, she took the pretensions that our society, and especially education, breeds. And she said, no, you're not special, I'm special. And so we ended up sharing our specialness with each other. She took the Cartesian notion that is inbred in us, that we have this right to treat animals this way or that way, and she said it doesn't work. I remember later on in the project, in the years second and third year, when we'd have new graduate students come on, she had a very, very humble, very, very effective way of humbling uppity graduate students. They were coming on, they were going to teach this chimp sign language, right? They knew that much about the project. But they didn't know sign themselves. And so Washo would start signing very slowly to them and very exaggerated, much as you might do to someone that doesn't speak English. You start talking loud and slow, which says, you're not too bright, are you?
I also worked on a show that Pam Minty and Anne Faucher produced about animal rights. Their show focused on the link between animal abuse and domestic violence. In this show, Pamela Frosch, who's an attorney for the Animal Legal Defense Fund, spoke at a conference that was sponsored by the Liberation Collective.
Over the past several years, we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of reported cases of animal cruelty, particularly those involving juveniles. Now, one thing that's interesting is I'm not sure if there's actually been an actual increase in animal cruelty, or if it's just that our community standards are finally starting to change and people are not as tolerant of it anymore, and we're seeing more cases being reported. I don't know of any statistics out there which would be able to show that, but I'm hoping it's the latter and not the former. Unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of these cases are never charged and the defendants are never brought to trial. And this failure in the system results from several problems. First, with rare exception, district attorneys do not consider acts of violence against animals a priority crime to be processed through the criminal justice system. Their offices are overworked, they have too few resources, they don't have enough time to do the crimes of violence against humans, let alone those against animals. So the animal crimes, they're just never charged. Second, anti-cruelty laws around the country are generally misdemeanors and therefore are perceived as being lower priority crimes. And also, most anti-cruelty laws provide absolutely no protection for large groups of animals in certain classes. And this is because of certain wholesale exceptions that various interest groups have been able to negotiate with the legislatures, such as hunting organizations, research facilities, meat industry. So you have these anti-cruelty laws around the country, Oregon included, that say, okay, you can't be cruel to an animal, and if you do, it's a misdemeanor, or in 17 states, including Oregon, it's a felony under certain circumstances. However, there are exceptions to that. So anything that's a good husbandry act is accepted. Well, think about what is considered a good husbandry act in most states. Castration without anesthesia. I mean, just doing horrible things to animals, that if you did something like that to a dog, you would be charged with cruelty. But because it happens to be a bull, it's okay.
Hi, I'm Dan Handelman. I also worked with Pam and Ann on a tape about the 1997 Peace and Justice Fair. It was kind of a weird experience for me because in addition to being a producer with Flying Focus, I was the main organizer of that event. And so I was sitting there helping them pick out the clips to show what it was like to attend the fair. And it was something that I had put a lot of energy into. So it was kind of this weird, I don't know if it was conflict of interest or what. In any case, they came up with a pretty good show. They went around and interviewed a lot of the 80 or 90 organizations that had tables there on the day. The point of the fair is that it's on Memorial Day, and it's to pay tribute to people who gave their lives in war by working towards a world without war. So these are peace and justice organizations, and Flying Focus had some literature out, and there was free food, and there was kids' activities, and there was all sorts of stuff going on. You'll see the Clothesline Project, and there were some singers and people from lots of the organizations were there to say a few words about what they were doing to make the world a better place.
Well, here's the clothesline here again at the Peace and Justice Fair, which is a good place for it to be. And it blows in the wind, so the pain is leaving now and again. We now have 300 shirts. Women should be, young girls, women, children should be free to go around without the fear of being hurt. And I hope one day everybody will work for that.
Well, KBOO's programming charter, KBOO's a nonprofit, listener-supported community radio station. It's one of the very few independent community stations in the country. We've been around for almost 30 years next year. We're there to provide a voice on the airwaves for people who are traditionally excluded from mainstream media.
We're youth organizations to help at-risk youth, delinquent youth that are in trouble, and we house them. And we're up to 6 months and provide a variety of positive opportunities for them.
Most of our work is around educational stuff, trying to get people to look at the military budget and realize how much of our taxes are going for things that we really don't believe in as progressive people.
Now pull down your washboard, play your guitar chord, do a little do-it-yourself. Now call on your neighbors to put down their labors, to come and play their hardware inside. The doctor said to give them jug band music. It seemed to make them feel just fine.
In addition to my work with Pam and Ann, I also worked with the main organizers of the March Against the Myth, which is a 4-day march from Portland to Salem against the death penalty. Among them were Shelda Holmes and Mary Burwell. And Mary's here tonight to help share with us her feelings about working on that production.
The production really allowed me to kind of come to terms with the 4-day march that a number of people took from Portland to Salem, and to abolish the death penalty in the name of abolishing state-sanctioned murder. And the video, putting it together, going back to that place, I think really allowed myself and Shelda, I think I can speak for, to kind of come to terms and to grapple with the whole situation. And it was nice to be able to do something positive out of that experience and to get it onto cable access in order to educate other people that maybe were waffling in the issue. And I think a lot of people have really kind of turned around, or at least are talking about it, and I think that's the first step.
And we were able to produce it just in time before the second execution took place, and hopefully a few people got enlightened by that. And another nice thing was that I was able to work with footage from not only my own footage, but from Barb and Moss and Elizabeth, so a lot of people from the group worked on it. So it was a real collaborative effort, and I guess we're going to take a look at some of the clips from that show now.
We're going to be present at the penitentiary this evening, sending a clear message to Oregonians that we oppose the death penalty. Do not kill in our name! 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 What do we want? When do we want it? Now! What do we want? End the death penalty! When do we want it? Now!
That if you permit the government to take life, any life, you are sanctioning the opportunity for the government to take the life of either your family or you.
Actually, it's been a long-term thing for me. I was in when they abolished it in the first place in 1964. I worked for the ACLU, stuffing envelopes and trying to get it abolished. So, and I thought I'd never have to do it again.
Don't kill people, teach people that killing is wrong. Don't kill people, teach people that killing is wrong.
And one thing people here don't understand very much is that if you travel outside this country and tell people you're in favor of the death penalty, they look at you like you are out of your mind. The death penalty globally is losing. In the last 5 years, 24 countries have gotten rid of it.
Another program I did this past year was a shortened version of the 1996 Hiroshima Day event down at Waterfront Park, put on by Physicians for Social Responsibility. The event featured Hanford Downwinders, as well as young peacemakers who are presented with awards, and several musical groups. Here you're going to see Portland's taiko drummers beating out a welcome and a few words from the Downwinders.
Hanford, of course, is not the only contaminated site in the United States. People living around the Nevada test site were termed a low-use population in now declassified government documents, and they were not warned of the dangers of radiation. Citizens working at the Oak Ridge facility in Tennessee and Rocky Flats in Colorado have been contaminated. And of course, the problem of what to do with our nuclear waste looms large and has propelled such drastic measures as our government offering the McDermott Indian Reservation a financial deal in return for the right to bury our radioactive waste on their reservation.
It is taking the people of the United States many generations to learn the lesson of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For those of us who have lived near weapons plants, in my case downwind of the Hanford Nuclear Reservation, it has been a lifetime journey from unblemished national victory through doubt and questioning of our deepest national historic memory to a kinship with all the powerless populations around the globe now experiencing the latent effects of a half-century of radiation emissions.
Finally, no year with Flying Focus for me would be complete without a program about Portland's so-called Police Review Board, PIAC. In the show that I did this year, I let the citizen advisors and the police bureau representative show their best sides. This is a case in which an off-duty police officer named Donald Speranza was being irritated by the sound of his neighbor's teenage sons bouncing on a trampoline at 2:30 a.m. And Speranza and another neighbor called the police who were on duty, and they arrived and then coded off the call, which basically means that there was no crime in progress, so they didn't have to write any citations or anything. Afterwards, Speranza wrote his own police report about the incident, alleging that the neighbor was negligent with his children and suggested that Child Services Division should look at it, CSD. And the neighbor filed a complaint with the Police Internal Affairs because Speranza was writing this police report as an off-duty participant in his personal conflict and using his power as a police officer inappropriately. Internal Affairs found no misconduct. So this clip that you're going to see is from the Police Review Board's deliberations on the appeal of that finding.
It's a report that purports to document unlawful activity with the suggestion that further investigation and or prosecution be undertaken. And for him to do that in a context where he is personally involved as a disputant with a neighbor, I think violates the spirit, if not clearly the letter, of that general order. And I respectfully, I understand all of what you said, and you know, I think he was correct in calling Officer B to the scene, and Officer B responded appropriately as far as we can tell. And Officer A was, you know, was okay up until the point where he wrote that report and submitted it to channels. And that's where I think we disagree.
Well, see, the situation that we have here, and this is often a dilemma that we get into, is at what point when you're involved personally, and we all live in neighborhoods, do you cease becoming a neighbor and then you become, you know, a police employee? And I think we're in a dilemma because I really believe that there's an actual concern on the part of police officers that if they don't write something down, they're going to be castigated for it. And now if they do, I mean, in terms of the strength of the wording, there is the last sentence of this report is a suggestion that, quote, CSD might want to look at this. And I really believe that with the amount of stress that's placed on us in terms of documentation, I think that officer showing up and Speranza being there put him in a position where I think he felt he had to write a report.
I think he knew what he was doing when he did that, and he could have just simply written something down and stuck it in his pocket if it was an issue of, you know, record keeping, which I just don't buy for a minute.
I find it particularly fun to watch the cops during these meetings. They always come up with some new explanation for why it's okay to violate people's civil rights. It always amazes me. And just as an update, the City Council voted to overturn the Police Bureau's finding and say the officer was wrong to write the report, but then Chief Moose refused to take the recommendation. And I'm going to be working on a follow-up show about this really soon because the City Council's going to get the Chief's response in a public forum pretty soon. So that's it for part one of the 6th Busiversary, and we hope you learned something. If you're interested in any of the programs you saw, or if you have comments or feedback, please give Flying Focus a call at 239-7456 or our voicemail at 321-5051. We want to remind you that Flying Focus has lending libraries, the main one of which is at Laughing Horse Books, and you can borrow our tapes there and watch them at home at your leisure. In the next part, we'll have even more people who are involved in making the shows happen and don't think that you can't make it happen too. So thanks a lot and good night.